Welcome back to Project Brupeg. We've actually sold our single boat and purchased a fleet of black and blue ones. Alright, that's not entirely true, I am just tugging your leg on that one, but we did manage to get onto a warship and get a couple of ideas for a future build on Brupeg. Brupeg was a sunken fishing trawler that was stripped out and ready for the scrapyard. She's just completed a 10-year rebuild that's brought her back to life. With the help of volunteers and funded by our Patreons, community and subscribers, she'll be crewed by passionate people from around the world. If you'd like to be involved and support the project, please consider joining us on Patreon or subscribe to the channel. There's a link in the description below. Recently, as part of our stay in Gladstone Harbour, Jess and I went on to HMAS Gladstone, a Navy patrol vessel, to get a couple of ideas as to how to set Brupeg up. The dog, it's got like a physical lever at the back here that goes down to a stop, but it's also got that latch up there so you can click it in and hold it. Isn't that awesome?
I love this. This is a sound-powered telephone, literally powered by speaking. If everything else fails on board, you can still communicate with each other. And this is one of our favourite areas of any boat, the engine room. HMAS Gladstone is powered by a couple of MTU Series 538 diesel engines, 3,200 shaft horsepower each, which can push the boat along at a nice little 30 knots.
This is the engineer's foxhole with its lovely wiring and a future switch addition to Brupeg. The engine room has duplicate engine controls, as well as a lot of mementos from crew that served on this boat over her years of service.
Just a few vents for the engine room, and we love this door.
This anchor winch looks very similar to ours. Oh, radar jealousy.
I love the stairs.
Yeah, they're awesome, eh? We picked up a bunch of ideas for Brupeg's galley looking through the galley on this warship. It was really cool. So things like the utensils rack, the plate storage, really beefy storage, stainless on the roof so that it's easy to clean, big ventilation system. Thanks to the guys at Gladstone Maritime Museum, it was awesome being able to see through the boat.
Getting some supplies in, doing the shopping. We had so much, we came back in the van and we had to use a trolley, filling up Mishka, or aka the tank, our little dinghy, and we'll head over to the boat. One of the things we're focusing on is to get baby used to being in her carry pack. We come over to the island, we come across on the dinghy, and give her some training, just some time to get used to it, while Damien has a bit of a run around the park here. We come over in the dinghy, just tie it up, and then we head back. Such a great spot. We're really enjoying our time here. I heard some unusual sounds outside Brupeg, opened up the window, and this is what I found. Not bad for a Friday night. We're on the Marina at the moment. We're filling up with water and getting some stuff done on the boat. Different view today. After a few days, being back on the mooring, we've got to go and put a little bit more diesel in the tanks for over New Year's with Julie and Duncan. So we're just getting organised and we'll go and do that now.
Lovely, thank you so much. That'll see us through for probably a month at least, as well as some more training with the Navy. Today we have Jess playing the role of stern thruster. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I can back out there if you want.
Coming off the mooring today, we noticed something a little bit different. The boat was a bit sluggish, slower to accelerate, just felt heavy, and we think there's a bit of growth on the prop. So we're going to try and find a dive on it and give it a clean for us, or we may need to consider pulling out here or somewhere up the coast and redoing the NFL. We'll have a bit of a think about that, and we'll find out how bad it is.
Good work.
You got the carrot? Yeah. Alright, baby, we're all good, darling. Yeah.
Anchoring is becoming more of a thing that we need to do on Brupeg. It's going to happen pretty frequently, and every time we bring the anchor up, we bring up half of the sea bottom. So we need a deck wash system up on the bow. That means we need to put a tap onto the front of the boat. And this is definitely not going to work, but this just might. So what I'm thinking, we've got these little ribs. You can sort of see one there, there's one there. If I spin around, you've got the equivalent there and over here. I'm going to use that as a sort of like a strong point. I want to put a stainless tap and mount it somewhere like that so it's out of the way, but I also need to plumb it in. So I'm thinking of making a stainless pipe, heavy wall stainless pipe that comes down and goes down into the anchor locker, which is down here, and that allows me to get it down and through into the interior of the boat without risking like water egress and all that sort of stuff. So first steps, let's go and make the stainless pipe that this screws onto, and then we can start mounting it up on the deck up here. Normally, if anybody else was probably attacking this job, they'd go and get the right piece of stainless and already have a thread on the end of it, and they'd be able to screw their tap into it. However, it's the day after Boxing Day, so what's that, the 27th of December. Practically no shops are open, so I'm going to work with what I've got. What I do have is some heavy wall stainless pipe. This is, I would say, schedule 40, so that's got to be a 3 or a 4 mil wall section, I'd say, on that. That's pretty heavy. In fact, this pipe is what we use to crank our anchor winch brake tight or loose. It's very strong, and it's going to be pretty awesome to have up on the bow in terms of we can smash anything on the bow against it and it won't damage it. That's not the reason I'm doing it. I'm doing it because that's what I have available. What I also need to do is this 1/2 inch hose tail that I've got. This screws perfectly into the back end of this tap. I'm going to weld this onto the heavy wall stainless pipe, and then I'm going to make the stainless pipe do a 90-degree bend and go down. But I'm not going to do a straight hard 90. I'm going to do a bit of a 45, make a sort of a nice feature of it, and then we'll get it nicely polished up and we'll weld it into the deck on Brupeg's 4-peak. I'm thinking of something that comes up, does a 45, and then goes across like that, and then have the threaded bit on the end and the tap basically wind, and the tap screws to the end of it. I think that's going to look much prettier up the front than something like that with a hard 90 on the end of it. Right, here's my pipe that I'm going to be using, the tube, the heavy wall tube. I need to create a 45-degree bend and then another 45-degree, so I end up with a 90-degree in total, because we want it basically sticking out horizontal for the tap. Now, there's got to be a simple way to come up with the V that I need to cut I just haven't quite figured that out yet. Like if I was doing, say, one bend that was going to be a 90 degree, it'd be really simple. I could just mark out a 90 degree bend like that, or a 90 degree angle, cut the two lines, bend the pipe, and it would be done. I need to do it with 45 degrees, and I haven't actually got my brain capacity working enough yet to figure out how to do 45 degrees on this that's going to work the way that we need it. I currently have less than 3 firing neurons in my brain, so I'm really struggling to figure out a simple way to solve this problem. I knew we'd been in this situation before. Years ago, when Jess, myself, and a bunch of other people helped us to build our little aluminium tube dinghy, we were in Mitre hell when we were trying to figure out how to make the tubes connect and join on the right angle so we can weld them without there being monstrous big gaps and holes to weld up. Mitre on a tube, our bane, our nemesis. I remembered we solved it using an online Mitre tube calculator because our puny brains were too small to be able to calculate it. Ha ha! This is how we solved it. So this is a pipe and tube Mitre calculator. So it basically ends up spitting out this piece of information here, which is what you need. Now to get there, you put in the diameter of your pipe, 32 millimeters. You put in the angle that you want, so 135 degrees. That's the inside of this joint is 135 degrees. And then what it creates is this template here. Now you print this out at 100%. You make sure there's no scaling when you print it, and you cut this out, and then you can wrap that around your tube, and you end up with the perfect line to cut to. And if you cut to that line, you'll end up with an absolutely perfect joint. So let's get it done. Because I need 2 of these cuts, I've put a line down the center line of this pipe. Where that line is doesn't matter, just as long as it's parallel. What I'm going to do is wrap my little template thing around, and you should be able to get it to using that line as my guide. Basically, I'm going to put some tape on that, but I'll end up with that just sitting on there nicely, and that allows me then to draw this line out on this end perfectly, make that cut. I'll make another one going this way over here, make that cut, and then I should be able to bend this into exactly the shape that we need. There we go, taped up. It's rotatable, but it's basically taped up so that I've got a tiny gap down here, which I can see that line. I'll now mark out this here, and I'll flip it around, slide it on, and we'll be able to do the equivalent down here somewhere. So mark up time. All right, so I've marked that one that you just saw. I've pulled this off, turned it around, slid it back on, and I'm in the position where I can mark this side. And this here might be a bit hard to see in the light, but this here is basically under there. See if I can get it to come on camera. You can do it. There you go. You can see that the V is kind of completed with this one onto the old one there. So let's get that marked up, and then that should be ready to cut that one. All right, 2 cuts ready to go. Let's get them out. With any luck, this is going to bend perfectly the way we need it to. Excellent. I have produced something that is not what we need. Let's fix that. And that's exactly how a Mitre calculator works. It'll get you almost perfectly to what you want, and then you'll spend the next 2.5 hours swearing about the little bit that it didn't quite work out. And this is possibly because of human error, but who's to say? Problem solved. Time to join everything together with TIG and 316 filler wire. There we go, completed pipe, our welded bends with our tap fitted. Right, I've cut it to length. Let's go and see if we can fit it up on the bow. So I was thinking of using this rib as like a strong mounting point, but I'm pretty confident that this pipe is going to be more than strong enough on its own. I've cut it down to length. What I'm thinking is mounting it basically same angle and same orientation as this rib, but sinking it down into the deck. So I've cut this to length, and I'll drop it down maybe another 6 inches. So drill a hole and drop it 6 inches through the deck, and that'll allow me to put all the fittings and everything on the bottom and have plenty of room. There's no issues with spanners hitting anything or anything like that. And it also brings this tap down well below. So I want to probably put the tap down here somewhere, so it's well below the side of the boat. We're not going to catch on anything. Nothing really goes past here. We don't really ever have any lines or anything like that. You won't necessarily swipe yourself when you walk past here, and I'm thinking it also gives me space up in front of this tap to mount things like a hose or like some sort of like hooks for a like a squirter gun, that sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's probably going to work, but it's getting late in the day, so I'm going to call it quits today. Tomorrow morning I'm going to drill that hole and get into it. You just saw me weld on this 90-degree fitting on the bottom, and it's basically a threaded fitting so that when this is poking in the right direction towards the front of the boat, the bottom here is poking back towards where the piping needs to go. So what I'm going to do now, this is 33 mil. I've got a 35 mil hole saw. It's the closest I've got. Would have liked to have had a 33, but I've got a 35 mil hole saw. What I'm going to do now is pop a hole through on the same angle as what I want to mount this on here. So start off with a small drill, 3.5 mil, something like that. We'll work up to a 6 mil, which is what this pin here is, and then we can start drilling it on an angle down like that. Risky. Okay, what's going on right now is exactly why I like to replace these inner guides with mild steel rather than rely on like the drill. So this is actually a piece of an old paint roller, and the reason I like mild steel rather than the hardened steel of a drill bit is if that was a drill bit, what I was just doing then, that would have broken like 4 or 5 times, whereas this sometimes will bend and you can just straighten it up. Sometimes it'll just come loose. Like it gives you, basically it gives you a huge amount more leniency to damage and things like that. It's really difficult to drill things with a hole saw on the best of days, but it's extremely difficult to do it like on an angle like this without breaking stuff. So it's pretty common for DIY people to go through a bunch of drill bits, and if you replace it with a piece of mild steel, bit of 6mm rod or 1/4 inch round bar, something like that, it just makes your life so much easier. Whoop whoop. Through. Let's get this in. So tis fits. Alright, so we're welding stainless, 316 stainless to mild steel, so 309 filler, so same applies for TIG or MIG or stick. It's all the same stuff. Basically you just need to use the right filler material because it bonds the two materials, the stainless and the mild, bonds them together without it cracking and becoming a problem later on. Let's get this tacked in anyway. Pretty good there, isn't it? Right, let's get another tack in there. Sometimes you have to get into really awkward spots. You need to do things like bend the wire or bend the filler rod so you can actually get around the back of really awkward placed pieces of stuff. Okay, that's solid as. If that was thinner, I'd probably have to like brace it or something like that, but I'm pretty confident that we could just leave that as is. It's actually the same thickness as the bollards. The wall thickness on this is the same as our bollard, so it's disproportionately strong. Right, I've just welded it in. This is not even warm, so it's far enough away that I don't have to stress about heat getting up there or anything like that. So this is food grade sealant. Everything I've done up here is food grade because this, at the moment, until we convert this to seawater, is actually running off our freshwater supply. Now a lot of people will freak out that we're going to be hosing our deck with fresh water, but we hold 5.5 tonne of fresh water, which lasts anywhere between sort of 4 and 6 weeks. So it's really not a stress using 20 litres of water to wash this down every few days or whatever. It's not a big deal for us. And eventually this will be converted to seawater, and all of the same gear and equipment will still be used. Right, that's tight enough and that can set up. All right, fantastic. Let's go and do the undersides. Tucked underneath the editing desk, I've just made this hole you can see through here. This is through the insulation, and that's so that I can put this 25mm cable gland through the bulkhead. This bulkhead at the front of the editing studio is the back wall or the back bulkhead of the anchor room. So by punching a hole through here, putting a cable gland, I can put a pipe, the feed of water that comes from down that end of the boat comes behind me and goes forward up here like that, and then I can plug it straight into the stainless pipe that we've just welded onto the foredeck. Holes drilled, Jess is climbing into the bow locker. I've got the nut, Jess has got the other end of the gland. We're going to basically fasten it together so that we can start feeding through the pipework.
Okay, coming through.
What happens Is it going through?
Son, can you see it?
Can you push it more? Perfect! Okay, thanks. At the other end of the editing studio, we have a desk on the rear wall, or the rear bulkhead of the editing studio, and behind here is the galley. This is our water supply. It comes from the cofferdam, which is right below me, comes up here and then feeds down into the galley, so just behind me, so towards the back end of the boat, one room backwards. What I need to do, this is not ideal, but I'm going to be using this hose joiner, and I'm using this because very, very limited on what parts I can actually get at the moment. I'd love to have some proper good push lock fittings and things like that, but I can't access them at the moment. And by putting this in, I know I can make it work, and we can get this system up and running and that sort of thing. This is easily accessible, and as soon as I can actually get some good parts, it doesn't really change what I have to do. It's still the same pipes and everything like that. I just take this out and put the push locks on. So I'm really happy to use this for now. And this is a fairly decent one in terms of hoping to have no leaks and things like that. So what I need to do is cut this pipe, put this joiner in here, and then feed water back to the galley, add this pipe in, which is our deck wash pipe. So let's get that done. I may end up with water all over me. See how you go. Alright, let's add a hose. Normally I'd like to put like a spiral hose or something on this to basically coil it up and disappear it when we're not using the hose. However, the only shop that I can access at the moment, Bunnings, has limited selection when it comes to spirals. I think the shortest they had was 10 meters or 33 feet, roughly, whatever that is. So what I've got in the interim is this hose, and I've got some really nice metal connectors and then a metal squirty gun, so hopefully no UV damage to any of these things. They should last a wee while. And what I'm thinking is I'll do some sort of hook up here like this, and we can just coil this guy up like that, so it's completely out of the way when we're not using it. And if it works, we'll just leave it, and if we need to put a spiral hose up here, we will. So let's turn the water pump on and see if it actually does its job. We have a deck wash!
Thanks for an incredible year, everyone. Have a good new year. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week.